Hello, everyone, and welcome to the National Bike Summit. It's really my pleasure. I'm Bill Nesper. I'm the Executive Director of the League of American Bicyclists, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and also, and on behalf of the League's Board of Directors, I have to say, and staff, to welcome you to the 2021 National Bike Summit. This 22nd summit is the largest ever, thanks to our incredible lineup of speakers and generous support from our sponsors who have made it possible to keep the cost low and to offer as many scholarships as possible. Special thanks to our platinum sponsors, Lyft and Uber, and our gold sponsors, the Federal Highway Administration, Lime, and People for Bikes, for their generous support of this year's summit. Just a quick housekeeping tip here, or housekeeping note, excuse me, from here, and then a little bit more about the summit and our work together in 2021 and beyond. So we're using the Whova conference platform, which allows us to connect with you, with our excellent sponsors and our exhibitors. So please do that. Set up a time to talk. This also serves as the schedule and directs you through the virtual conference. So all of the sessions, including this one, are in Zoom. These sessions will be available on demand after the summit. And so we recommend that you use the Zoom link to view them and also do the Q&A and chat functions within Zoom during this live session. Closed captioning is available in all the sessions, and we're happy to have Stephen with us signing during the plenaries here today. So please keep the discussions going on all the topics after these sessions in the community section of the Whova platform. We all look forward to hearing and seeing you there. So thanks to the wonders of modern technology, we're able to, and I guess in a year of practice, we're able to offer a summit experience that is engaging, informative, and hopefully fun. I thank our excellent staff for making all of this possible. And thank you for being here, for showing up to share best practices, to listen, to learn, to represent the people of your home communities and states in these sessions and on Capitol Hill. While we're not together in person, we're working together and riding together because we believe that everyone should have access to safe, comfortable biking and access through biking to the places that they want to go. We believe that everyone should have a real opportunity to bike for transportation, for well-being, for the pure joy of it, no matter their income level, their neighborhood, their race, or their age or ability. We can't say it enough. The bicycle isn't just the best vehicle ever invented. Bicycling is part of the solution to many of the challenges that we face in our communities, country, and world. It's our vehicle for change. Right now, we're in a moment where momentum is critical. If we work together to keep up this momentum of the bike boom and to build back better, we can really build back bicycle friendly. During the pandemic, people nationwide embraced bicycling as one of the few ways that they could still get exercise, relieve the stress of their days, and safely get to where they need to go. Bike advocates quickly mobilized to make sure that bike shops were considered essential businesses, to speak out for more space for biking and walking, and to create online resources to help people ride safely and confidently. There's a historic opportunity here in a historic moment. And for that reason, we can't ignore history. We must look ahead while still looking back and recognizing the pre-existing cracks that the pandemic has exposed. Biking is not equally experienced across the country, and systemic racism has been built into our environment and through planning and transportation choices. Building back bicycle friendly means addressing the mistakes of the past for a better future. It means prioritizing people's health and well-being. It means prioritizing the planet over congestion relief. It means prioritizing each other's lives over car speed. Building back bicycle friendly means happier, healthier people and more equitable and resilient communities, and truly fighting climate change. To build back bicycle friendly, what we're doing right here over the next few days is essential. We have to focus on building political will. We know that the keys to building bicycle friendly communities and building a bicycle friendly America, and we need decision makers from here in Washington and to your city councils to act. We see what happens when advocates like you create political will. Actions and investments in better biking improves lives and communities, and not just for the people who are riding. Right now, thanks to advocates, many of whom are here at the summit, 28% of Americans live in bicycle-friendly communities, and 11% live in communities rated silver or better. Those are communities that have committed to making bicycling safe, comfortable, and accessible to all. And the results are striking. Bicycle-friendly communities have twice the ridership of bicycle ridership of the average American community, and silver or better bicycle-friendly communities have 3 times as many people riding. If we work together to build this political will and get the bigger commitments for better biking, we can raise that 11% to 20% of Americans living in silver level bicycle friendly communities by 2030. Just think for a moment about what that would mean to connecting communities, creating jobs, improving health, removing barriers, and reducing carbon emissions. By using this historic moment to invest more resources and energy into what matters most to build bicycle-friendly communities, we're acting at the local level with a national and global impact. So how do we do it? Well, being here at the summit together, united, is step one. We have over almost 1,100 bike advocates here, networking, learning, and hopefully taking these important lessons to your meetings on Lobby Day up on the Hill, and also to your next city council meeting. Because the funding and policy change that we get here, that we get in place at the federal level, enables your work at that local level. At this summit, we've set up tracks in each of the key areas for building better bicycle-friendly communities. You'll learn about building safe systems and great networks, the infrastructure that meets the needs of all people and all ages, of all abilities, and connects every neighborhood and leaves no one behind. You'll be learning about bicycling education and driver education, building the knowledge of people who bike or drive. We believe that everyone should have access to the skills and confidence building of bicycling education, and that by high school, every young person should have received on-bike bicycling education. We also believe that everyone who bikes should not have a fear of drivers. And part of that is that every driver should receive training on their responsibility and for keeping bicyclists and other vulnerable users safe. Increasing access to biking is bigger than just networks and education, of course. So we'll be learning about how to be more effective at building partnerships and increasing real engagement. The bike community must do more to be, we have to be doing more than just being open to all. We must be investing in welcoming all in order to build great bike cultures, and from social rides to club events, bike share, other incentives. So across all these tracks, we have to remember the principles of equity, diversity, inclusion as a lens by which we evaluate all of these actions and how they're taken and how our outcomes are driven. Is everyone included in our visions and actions? Are we putting people at the center of our work? I'm beyond excited for what we have in store at this summit. We're going to listen, learn, and grow stronger to build that political will to build back bicycle friendly, and to take what we learn and put it into practice through advocacy and action. We have a historic opportunity here. We've been through bike booms before. In fact, the League is the product of the first boom of the 1800s. We've seen subsequent booms in the 70s and the 1990s and the early 2000s. And we've made progress in all those times because of your work, including seeing a fourfold increase in bicycling, federal bicycling and walking investments over the last 20 years. We've seen our advocacy actions bear fruit and transform lives and communities. But this time is different, and it needs to be. We need to be more inclusive and equitable than in the past. We have a better team than ever before, and several of them are here at the summit, and you'll hear from them today and throughout, aiming to meet the biggest challenges of our time. We have a first family that bikes, a Secretary of Transportation who bike shares to work. We have members of Congress who have been leading on these issues for decades, and including the chair people of the two most important committees for our issue in Congress. So we must meet this moment to shift up together and be part of the solution, to raise our voices in support of lasting change that benefits everyone, to be good partners in the recovery and building a stronger, healthier, and more connected and sustainable future. So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of those great leaders in Congress, Chairman Peter DeFazio. Chairman DeFazio has been in Congress and on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee since 1987. And as a former bike mechanic, and maybe the only one still serving in Congress, the only bicycle mechanic serving in Congress, has been a longtime supporter of the investments in safe and accessible biking and walking. In 2019, he was elected as chair of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, which is the jurisdiction over all the nation's transportation system. In 2020, Chairman DeFazio authored and passed in the House the Moving Forward Act, transportation legislation that addresses the climate crisis head on, created a new performance measure to improve access across all modes, and a strong complete streets and context sensitive design approach in federal policy, and included huge strides for biking and walking safety and funding. This year, he once again is in position to write and pass a transformative transportation bill. So we look forward to hearing from the chairman about his plans for this bill and what role we, the bicycling community, can have in that. So over to you, Chairman DeFazio.
Well, thanks for that introduction, and welcome to everybody attending the virtual conference. I look forward to a time when we can actually have physical conferences again, but you know, we can still do good work virtually, and we have been. As you mentioned, I am in the process of writing a transformational infrastructure investment bill. You know, I'm not going to do Eisenhower 7.0. You know, that's essentially what we've been doing since the 1950s. This is going to be a 21st century version, a 1.0 version. And it'll be substantially along the lines that you mentioned of the bill that I moved out of my committee after a very contentious 24-hour markup, and across the floor of the House appended to other bills were critical in dealing with economic recovery, jobs, and climate change, particularly the portions where my committee and the Energy and Commerce Committee work closely together on electrification of the national highway network, building of sufficient renewable power so that we aren't charging cars from coal plants, and also that, you know, if we move in the direction of hydrogen, that we use renewable hydrogen, brown or so-called blue hydrogen, which the oil industry is trying to push. But one of the major solutions, obviously, is cycling and active transportation. And I believe in that tremendously. We now have a Secretary of Transportation who's actually, done a complete streets program in the city where he was mayor. And you might have seen his tweet last week, riding his bike when he was coming to DC. He told me, "Oh, I found this great place." He said, "There's bike lanes all the way down to DOT." And I said, "Well, I don't know if you're scared people will let you do that, but it'd be great if you can bike to work." And the president and his wife also so when I first started working on this way back in, I think it was the first T-bill with Joe Kennedy, and we were going to do $1 billion for bikes. Well, we didn't get to $1 billion, but back then most members of Congress thought of bikes and toys that they had as a kid or their kids had, and really didn't recognize, and we still have problems with many members of Congress who don't recognize cycling, pedestrian, active transportation as incredibly viable alternatives, particularly when we deal with design. We're going to have to rebuild a heck of a lot of our infrastructure. Well, we're going to rebuild it in a way that is safe for active modes. I'm very disturbed that increase in fatalities with pedestrians and cycling, and I want to deal very, very meaningfully with this in this bill. We're going to have $6.25 billion allocated. Now, remember, Joe and I were after billion, but this is even beyond inflation adjustment for active transportation. Another $3 billion dedicated to safety. 8.3 billion for carbon reduction, and we're going to give the states a mandate to annually report and meet targets, and we're going to reward states that have innovative plans to do this, and then we're going to have $2 billion dedicated to localities, avoiding state DOTs, going down to municipalities for complete streets, and safe routes to schools and other programs. Locally, we want locally driven discussions on these issues. And I'll read this list I couldn't quite keep in my head. So we're going to reform transportation alternatives, ensure those dollars go further with more local control, increase flexibility on non-federal match, providing funding for technical assistance, because a lot of small communities don't have the capability of drawing up these kinds of plans. Secondly, we're going to establish a new active transportation connectivity grant program for safe and connected active transportation. Expand safe routes to schools. My dear friend and mentor, Jim Ostar, did tremendous work on that a number of years ago. The Republicans tried to totally kill the program. We managed to change the name and change a few other aspects of it, keep it going, but not in as robust a form as I want to restore it to. We're going to require context-sensitive design principles, which will bring about complete streets, safety for all road users, design flexibility to local governments. We don't have to follow some of these national mandates, which are totally car-centric. We want to move towards zero deaths. My largest city in my district, Eugene, has adopted that objective, as have a number of other cities around the country. And that in particular has to deal with, as I said earlier, the rise of pedestrian cycling deaths. Going to reform safety performance management to drive a reduction in fatalities, ensure states and local governments put safety first. When they're saying speed limits, you all know that a car moving 20 impacting a cyclist or pedestrian is way less. I mean, it's not, but it's way less problematic than a car going 35 or 40 in terms of the rate of fatalities and extremely serious injury. And then we make bike share eligible under the congestion mitigation air quality program, as well as other climate-focused highway. So, my timeline is to have a bill done by spring and get it over to the Senate. This last year, my part, which is transit and wastewater and harbors and rail and transit, was earlier, but then it ultimately was melded with energy and commerce, which is critical, as I mentioned earlier, for defossilization. And it was also melded with major initiatives in housing for the housing crisis, the education committee on schools. I don't know if the leadership wants to go forward in that large of a package again. I've had good discussions with the Biden administration. And like I say, I will do my part, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it this spring, and look forward to working with all of you on the best ever transportation package, the first transportation package for the 21st century. Really emphasizes active transportation. So with that, I'd be happy to take a couple of questions if you have time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chairman DeFazio. I think some people have reported that maybe your video went out, so I just want to highlight that for you. I really appreciate your remarks, and so, but we can hear you, so that's the most important thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But if I don't know if there's you could turn it on and off, but I'll send you the question. First off, so at the ASHTO conference last week, you said that the next the transportation bill is going to be really transformative. We love your vision. Like you said, it's not going to be, 7.0 of the Eisenhower plan. Can you tell us what role you see bicycling playing in that? And then between now and September, how can we guarantee that that we get this transformational bill? Like what role can we play in helping make that happen?
The ranking member on the Public Works Committee, Ms. Capito from West Virginia, expressed, shall we say, dislike of the bill that I passed in the last Congress, and too green. And then also the as I said, it was very contentious 24-hour markup in my committee. People need to be contacting their local members of Congress, senators, all the active chapters around the country to push to keep these provisions in. when we begin to negotiate with the Senate. You know, I think it's possible. I'm also going to be holding a hearing in a couple of weeks to try and bring the Republicans around on active transportation defossilization by making a business case for them. We'll see if that is more convincing. In the last Congress, we just couldn't say the word climate change, or there would be a small explosion on the other side of the aisle. So I don't know if that changes with Trump, at least semi-recluse, but you know, it's still going to be an issue.
Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, when you talk about climate change and we're thinking about climate change in transportation, the conversation often goes to electric vehicles. But what role do you see reducing vehicle miles traveled playing in your making transportation more sustainable?
Well, we want to deal with vehicle miles traveled by providing people with safe, clean, efficient options. Active transportation, you know, the more we can segregate and have dedicated, you know, bike lanes that are segregated, like in many places, you know, particularly I'd point to Copenhagen, which doesn't have the greatest weather in the world, but, you know, a massive amount of their people commute by bike and they plow the bike lanes first. I took the committee there to look at that. We can replicate those models here in the United States. And actually that has been one of the, I don't want to say there's any silver linings with COVID, but we've seen a number of cities move ahead much more quickly with plans to restrict streets to pedestrians and cycling, or to add cycling lanes, eliminate parking, and other measures. And we are going to be encouraging that. And then we have to also deal with transit because, you know, our transit systems have $100 billion backlog to be brought up to a state of good repair. And, you know, we're tiding them through the COVID. We've got a nice into this COVID package to keep them in place, making some progress on, sorry about that. We're making some progress on that. But a lot more needs to be done. We need to provide new transit options into transit-starved areas. You know, I took the committee also, we went to Dijon, France, which has this beautiful historic downtown, which used to be, you know, just like in clouds of diesel smoke with their buses. And what they did is they set up light rail, and the light rail takes people from parking garages in the suburbs into the city. So the people don't drive much. They're very much like Heidelberg, Germany, or other places where they're really discouraging cars in inner cities, but they're making it convenient enough for people. I mean, right, you know, everybody's pressed for time. And people say, well, you know, if it's going to take me an hour and a half to get to work on transit, or the thing is going to break down, I'm going to drive. I can get there in 35 minutes or 4 minutes. Let's make the transit more viable, plus give people the active options, which we just talked about. And I think a combination of those two things, you know, is going to lead to, particularly in our urban and suburban areas, a reduction in vehicle miles traveled for the national network. I want to invigorate or reinvigorate high and higher speed rail around the country and Amtrak, so that people can use rail options instead of you know, distance driving on the highway network, or at least for moderate distances, 100 miles with higher speed rail. Hey, if I could get to Portland regularly, which is 112 miles from my house, 2.5 hours on Amtrak, I'd do it. But on a good day, I can drive an hour 50, and on a bad day, who knows? But Amtrak usually takes 3.5 or 4 hours, so I got to deal with those issues, with the freight network, blocking passenger rail, the preference they're not getting. There's a host of issues there too to reduce vehicle miles traveled.
Yeah, well, Thanks for taking the time with us today, and thanks for everything you're doing to make this transformational. We are really excited to be here at the National Bike Summit this week and beyond, working with you to make sure we get just that. Yeah, so I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna now introduce our next speaker. So thank you so much. Big thanks, Chairman DeFazio.
Okay, everybody be active, be loud, be persistent. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We will be, that's right. So now it's, I'd like to bring on our League board member, LCI, the former recipient of the Susie Stevens Joyful Enthusiasm Award, and our brand new People's Bike Mayor of Boston, Vivian Ortiz, to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you to the League for giving me the opportunity to introduce our next speaker. I can't remember when I first met Ayanna Pressley, but I do remember the first time she made an impression on me. It was in September of 2015, soon after Anita Kerman was right hooked and killed riding her bicycle, when then City Councilor at Large Pressley called for a hearing on bike infrastructure in Boston. I hadn't been riding a bicycle for very long, and I was new to the advocacy world. Most of the members of the public that spoke that night were requesting additional bike infrastructure for their neighborhoods. 3 hours into the hearing, and it was my turn to speak, and the majority of the people had already gone home. I'll never forget how she listened attentively, nodded and smiled while I pointed out that in my Black and brown neighborhood of Mattapan, my neighbors weren't quite ready for protected bike lanes, and what we needed were the basics. We needed more crosswalks, we needed faded crosswalks to be painted, and we needed more stop signs to be added to intersections. Over time, we got to know each other at meetings and events, and many of them were related to biking. While she was on City Council, she sponsored the ordinance that made Boston the first city in the country requiring side guards on all city contracted vehicles or tractor trailers over a certain weight. I'm pretty sure that I speak on behalf of many of the folks here when I say that we are ready that side guards become a requirement across the United States. I doubt if she remembers this, but when the results came in on election night in November of 2018, I texted her to say that I'd see her in a few months at the National Bike Summit. When she met with my bikies from Massachusetts on Lobby Day in her office in Washington, DC in 2019, the last time that we were able to gather together as a group, she'd recently accepted the invitation to co-chair the National Bike Caucus. She then went on to co-chair the Future of Transportation Caucus. And if you don't know this, in the 2 years that she's been in office, she has sponsored or co-sponsored close to 800 bills. It is with great pleasure and such an honor for me to present my amazing Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley. Thank you.
Oh, wow. My goodness, I find myself being emotional because you know, what I love about my cyclist family is exactly that we are family, and we're a real community. And I'm so grateful for the bonds of community that I have forged with so many of my siblings in the work of social justice and climate justice and healthcare justice, which certainly cycling is at the intersect of all of those things. Vivian, you are so deserving of the title of mayor. It is my honor to call you Madam Mayor in this moment. I thank you for your sisterhood, and in that, although Black history is American history and it is every day, but as we transition out of Black History Month officially and into Women's History Month, I just want to say thank you to you, Vivian, and to all my fellow sisters who honor the legacy of Catherine Kitty Knox, who honor the legacy of Susan B. Anthony, you know, who said, when asked about the role of cycling and what that meant for women, she says, I think it has done more to empower and to emancipate women more than anything else in the world. It makes her feel independent. And away she goes the picture of free, untrammeled womanhood, unquote. So thank you so much for honoring that legacy. And it's wonderful to be with all of you in virtual community today. I want to thank everyone at the League of American Bicyclists for the invitation. Thank you for laboring in love for your tireless work to pull this amazing event together. Thank you to Chairman DeFazio, the Mass Bike community, and my brother and my neighbor in Longworth, Earl Blumenauer. It was a great day when he invited me to co-chair the Congressional Bike Caucus. It was such a full circle moment. We care about so many of the same things, from food justice to climate justice. And it has been an honor to do this work following his lead, but in shared stewardship. And of course, Vivian, again, thank you. No one has done more to ensure that the Massachusetts 7th makes bicycling safety and accessibility a priority, especially for Black and Brown communities. Now, no one here needs a reminder of the unprecedented times that we find ourselves in, given these conflated crises and unprecedented public health crises that has wreaked havoc and economic hardship on our most vulnerable communities and has robbed us of the lives of more than 500,000 people. And in my home state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact in communities, certainly, and on state and local governments, because the federal response failed to sort of keep pace with the scale and scope of the crisis. Our state and municipal governments and advocates like all of you have really had to stand in the gap. And so now we see our public transit systems are now facing steep cuts. These budgets have been devastated, and critical funding for a variety of transit projects, including additional bike paths, is at risk. Now, I was asked to specifically speak on how I came to be an advocate for better bicycling and walking infrastructure. And the answer is simple. You all led me there. You know, I think as someone who seeks to actualize social justice, I understood early on that mobility and investment in multimodal infrastructure, and as someone who doesn't own a car and who was riding the bus regularly and the T regularly, I certainly understood all of that abstractly, you know, and I wanted to make sure I've never seek to be the voice for the voiceless, because no one is voiceless. What they are is unheard. And the more I leaned in, the more I realized that this was a community that was being unheard. And as I saw this uptick in motor vehicle and cyclist collisions and fatalities, as someone who was doing the work of fostering healthier communities and more peaceful communities, I felt that this was a community that was unseen and unheard, and I wanted to create that space. So you all led me there. But I always got the climate justice component, I got the healthcare justice component, and the economic justice component. But it took me longer to realize, other than the inequities and lack of access, the racial justice component. And for me and my family, what that racial justice component has been is that when I'm on a bike, I feel I'm embracing my full humanity. There is a freedom and a self-agency and a self-determination. And it's so important that that be on full display as well. You know, I think the brutalization and the hurt and harm that Black Americans and other marginalized communities have disproportionately experienced, much of which was legislated and was legalized, is because people have not seen our humanity. And so when I'm on a bike, I feel that I'm leaning into my full self. And so that has been the greatest gift. And I just want to thank the community for giving me that. And you know, I was very nervous. I'm 47 years old now. I've got a lot of injuries, and the community just rallied around me in my first attempts, even though I was wobbly to first get on a bike and to get my confidence up. So I just want to thank the community for that, for the joy of that. And so I'm happy to share that experience with all of you, but I'd be remiss if I also did not share how proud I am of the cycling community and all the national bike communities that stood in solidarity intentionally with the Black Lives Matter movement by organizing multiple rides for Black lives this past summer. So biking can inform joy. It can give you that self-agency and determination, reduce our carbon footprint, and allow you to get in some exercise. And because of a bill that I co-sponsored in partnership with Representative Earl Blumenauer, my co-chair of the Congressional Bike Caucus, you can now get a tax break simply for choosing to ride your bike. And here's the thing, bicycles and e-bikes are the future. And we're going to need your support to ensure that our new partner in the White House lays out a budget and a transportation plan that recognizes how vital bicycling is in our communities. So to that end, for those of you that are just now meeting me, you might not know that policy is my love language. And that is because we have seen short-sighted, discriminatory, draconian policies enact hurt and harm. And so if that can be true, then through our lawmaking, we can legislate equity, and we can legislate justice, and we can legislate healing, and we must. And so being one of the original co-chairs to launch the Congressional, or rather the Future of Transportation Caucus, has been one of the highest honors of my life. And many of you know, again, that I'm proud to co-chair the Congressional Bike Caucus with my friend and fellow enthusiast, Rep. Blumenauer. And through our work with the caucus, we have successfully advanced policies like the Bicycle Commuters Act, which will restore and improve the tax benefit for bike commuters, the Bike Share Transit Act, which will support local bike share programs by helping communities across the country access federal funds for bike share facilities and equipment. We know policies like these can be a game changer in our most vulnerable communities, because when communities have better and more transportation options to get to and from work, they're able to save money and to live healthier lives. In my work as a co-founder of the Future of Transportation Caucus, I was proud to introduce my landmark Freedom to Move Act. Vivian was with us at the launch of that in Mattapan Square with my friend and my partner in good trouble, Senator Markey. Now, the Freedom to Move Act will invest heavily in our public transit systems so that states and localities can offer safe, high quality, and fare free rides to improve the safety and accessibility of bus stops, pedestrian and bike shelters, and modernize our streets so that we can alleviate traffic congestion and prioritize the safety of everyone sharing the roads, not just those in cars. Making public transit free, but also investing in more multimodal systems is what I plan to focus on in the next Congress. Biking is fun and a healthy form of exercise, but it can also be one of the best ways we can reduce traffic congestion, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, which are contributing to health disparities like asthma and lung cancer in our most vulnerable communities. So promoting more bicycling across our nation is just common sense. It's a no-brainer. And we need to act like it, and we need to mobilize like it, and we need to legislate it like it, and we need to fund like it. So I am so honored to be able to do this work alongside all of you. And it's my honor to be your sister in solidarity and in this fight to realize transportation justice and bike equity in this Congress. And again, thank you to my dear sister. You can't introduce me ever again because you're gonna make me so emotional. There's just too much history there. But thank you, Madam Mayor, for that humbling introduction and for your sisterhood and partnership.
Thank you so much, Representative Pressley. We're so thankful for your leadership and proud to be riding with you. And your clarity on this work within the larger justice work is it's just great to hear. And I think everybody at the National Bike Summit feels very happy to have someone saying, in this role, saying what you're saying is just incredible. And we love just the joy and freedom that we all feel when we're on a bike, and our opportunity to make that possible for everyone is just the work we're trying to do here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bill. And I'd be remiss as the daughter of a stepfather who's been deaf since the age of 6. I just would like to thank Stephen. You're doing an excellent job. So if we can all just applaud and thank Stephen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Yes, he is doing a great job. So before I have one speaker we're going to introduce right here, and then we're going to have some remarks from Congressman Blumenauer at the end. So I'm going to introduce Caroline Sampanaro. So we know all of this in our advocacy, that if we're going to be effective and build a stronger coalition, we have to have strong partners and shared goals, both on the congressional side and also with businesses and of course within other coalitions of nonprofits and associations. So the League has been thankful to have such a partnership and support of Lyft, now the largest bike share operator in North America. And Lyft has been a major sponsor of this conference for years and has underwritten our brand new Smart Cycling Quick Guide, and has been a partner in working for better policy in Washington. And now I'd like to introduce to you one of our own. So she got her start as a bike advocate. Her first bike summit was in 2006. Many of you know Caroline Sampanaro with her days at Transportation Alternatives in New York City, but she's now the head of micromobility and transit public policy at Lyft. And so I'm happy to invite her to speak with you now.
Thanks, Bill. Hey, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And Lyft is very proud to be a sponsor of this important event. And thank you also to the leaders in Congress here today, Chairman DeFazio, Representative Pressley. Your words were really moving. The way that you're bringing bike to the fore as a vehicle for equity is powerful and important. And we also really value your support on the Blue Bike system. So thank you. And of course, Representative Blumenauer, the fearless leader of the all-powerful bike lobby. I can't hear what you have to say today. So as Bill said, we're the largest bike share provider in North America. A fun fact that we crunched for this event. In 2019, our city bike system provided more trips in a year than over 90% of transit providers in the US. So in other words, if City Bike were a transit agency, it would be ranked number 52 among transit agency looking at ridership levels. So just for a frame of reference, this is around the same ridership levels as the Sacramento Regional Transit or Ride-On Montgomery County here in Maryland, and slightly larger than agencies like Caltrain in the Bay Area and CODA in Central Ohio. As we join efforts with our partners in Congress to build a better and more resilient transportation system in the months ahead, it goes without saying, I think now more than ever, that bike share needs to be a part of that, and that we can deliver incredible results with shared bikes against larger transportation goals. During the COVID pandemic, the Lyft team, we were proud to rise to the occasion and to make sure that bikes could be part of a solution to a lot of different challenges. As Representative Pressley said, we were also proud that our bike share systems were used by Americans to organize against racism and to sort of put forward a vision of a more equitable society. For our part, we also worked with our city partners to launch the Critical Work First program. And it was incredible to witness more than 35,000 Americans take us up on a free bike share membership to get to critical frontline work, whether it was the hospital, transit service, or first responders. Those critical workers rode more than 1 million miles on our systems in just the past year. And we also, I think, all watched with excitement as e-bikes entered bike share systems in scale for the first time. And I think they obviously hold a great promise as we welcome more and more people to biking on a daily basis. So we are really proud to be a part of this movement, to be a partner to the League, and supporting all the great work you're doing on the ground. Thank you for that opportunity, and we'll see you in the bike lane.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Really appreciate your support and your words today. So I'm thrilled to announce our next speaker. What would the National Bike Summit be without Congressman Earl Blumenauer? I'm trying to look like him today. I think we both have the green bike pens. Congressman Blumenauer has been an innovative leader, first in Oregon, for decades in Congress as a representative from Oregon's 4th Congressional District. As one of the youngest legislators in Oregon's history, he was a key player in creating Oregon's groundbreaking land use laws. As the Multnomah County Commissioner and the member of the Portland City Council, Earl's innovative accomplishments in transportation with light rail, bicycles, and the streetcar, and the planning and environmental programs and public participation helped Portland earn the international reputation as one of the most livable and bicycle-friendly communities. Elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1996, Earl has been a tireless advocate of bicycling. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Bike Caucus, a leader on bicycle-friendly legislation, of course, and a champion of bipartisanship. He's currently a member of the Ways and Means Committee, where he is a constant voice for promoting investment in transportation infrastructure, especially biking and walking infrastructure. So over to you. Thanks for being with us, Congressman. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Mute myself. That works better. Thanks. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for the hard work that's gone into making this virtual bike summit a success. It's hard work. We're a little tired of Zoom meetings, but this is one that is absolutely worth it. And I will tell you, I am pleased to have been able to listen to my friend and colleague, Peter DeFazio, who's been a champion with the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I've been able to work with him to get my legislation into the HR2. We have important pieces coming forward in terms of Vision Zero, in terms of making sure that we are able to have bike share classified as a transit system. We're working hard on the e-bike tax credit to be able to utilize this exciting new technology. Sharing the program with Ayanna Pressley, who is such a champion on so many different levels. She adds such passion and precision. She is a true believer in transportation alternatives for everybody, and has moved forward quickly to assume leadership. I was excited that she agreed to be one of our co-chairs of the Bike Caucus, and she's making her influence felt in so many different ways. And her clarion call for cycling and walking investment as an act of freedom and inclusion and diversity is something that we should all take to heart. This is the most consequential Congress in American history. Think about it. It started with the riot with people who tried to overthrow the presidential election. We're in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic, a near collapse of the economy, unprecedented divisions, where it seems at times that people are in two different worlds. This is an extraordinarily difficult time, but it is one of opportunity in terms of rising to the occasion, defeating the coronavirus and what the Biden administration has been doing going forward. And from their first minutes in office, reaffirming our commitment to deal with the climate crisis, which of course, our work with biking and cycling and alternative technology is going to be key to being able to realize. It's also, I think, an opportunity to heal some of the divisions. You've heard already from Ayanna and Peter about some of the work we've got with opportunities, with legislation, with bills that have been introduced. Let me just say that this is our moment. For the first time in a decade, we have an opportunity to move forward. I think back 10 years ago in the Obama administration. We had Secretary LaHood. Many of you will remember at our reception after a day of lobbying, he jumped up on the table, commanded the presence in terms of rallying the troop. He was truly a remarkable human being. Well, today we have a Secretary of Transportation, as Peter referenced, Pete Buttigieg. Actually has been seen riding bike share. He was involved with innovative transportation in his town of South Bend, and his platform for his presidential campaign was the most innovative and advanced. And he has a special talent, I think, in terms of communication. So we've got the alignment with the administration. It looks like we'll have Polly Trottenberg, as many of you know, because of her leadership in the prior administrations and leading New York's transportation operation. This is in her blood. So we've got the lineup. We've got the imperative moving forward. We have people around the country who are using the circumstances now to build on a transportation future. We've seen the uptick in use of cycling in the midst of the pandemic. In my community of Portland, Oregon, every day I'm not in DC, I'm wandering through the streets of Portland on interminable conference calls, and I see families who are escaping from the COVID quarantine cycling. We're watching people use the opportunities with scooters and with bicycles and with bike share because they were concerned about the safety of transit systems. And we're going to get that worked out. But in the meantime, this has been liberating for people to be able to take advantage of them. Bike share, and I think we had a little bit of an understatement about cycling or bike share from Caroline. I mean, it's in 119 communities now. There are a fleet of 100,000 cycles and 50 million trips. This is extraordinary, being able to engage people, and we're watching leadership use this as a tool of inclusion. E-bikes, which were referenced. We've seen a 200% increase in sales this last year. And we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg about what can happen with broader applications of e-bikes. Now, I'm still a little old-fashioned in terms of I pedal most of the time, but I'll tell you, I have been really impressed with the ability of the e-bike to be able to deal with challenging hills and terrain, to be able to encourage new people to be part of the process. And most of the people who move to e-bikes are former car commuters. There's a huge opportunity to reduce the carbon footprint. Scooters, there's what, 124 million trips in 2019. These are, most of them not most, but a significant portion of them were in lieu of a commuting trip. So the scooter has tremendous potential as well to be able to fight congestion, fight carbon, and be able to extend that freedom that we're talking about. You look at the technology, you look at what's happened in terms of people taking up the charge to be able to reshape our communities. You know, we're going to see profound differences as we come out of this coronavirus period. We're going to be stuck in it for 6, 8, 10 months. But we're not going to return to normal. We don't know what the workplace is going to look like in the future. I think the workplace is going to be dramatically changed. I don't think we're going to have the same commuter patterns. I don't think that people are going to abandon this experience that they've had. It's going to be integrated into part of the transportation and the recreation platform. It's also part of the economy. $88 billion in terms of the cycling industry. These are opportunities to strengthen local economies. There's an opportunity for us to be able to repurpose acres and acres and acres of asphalt and concrete, to be able to repurpose for pedestrian, for restaurants on the sidewalks, to be able to have more protected bike lanes. We're going to see our communities dramatically reshaped. But that's where you come in. I've been excited. I've been at every bike summit, I think, but one. I think I may have had to miss one. But in the last 10 years, we've been fighting just to hold our own. We had, as Peter referenced, an all-out attack by Republicans on so many of programs that you helped establish. And we've been able to hold on by our fingertips, but they were under assault, and funding has been dramatically restricted. They even suspended the bike commuter benefit. But this is different. We now have Chairman DeFazio. We have a majority of Democrats in the House. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer understands these challenges. And so we're not going to, and we have an administration that is committed to a balanced transportation system and has appointed a superb Secretary of Transportation and other members of that team. Now, bike partisanship is still alive and well, because once we're not going to be bottled up by the Trump administration or some short-sighted committee chairs, there are Republicans who agree with this. My Republican co-chair of the Bike Caucus, Vern Buchanan from Sarasota, Florida, is a huge cyclist, an advocate. He's been a terrific partner. And there are others that will join us. And this is an area that is space. There's so much here in Congress that is contentious and partisan and mean-spirited. But bike partisanship is not like that at all. Bike partisanship brings people together. Bike partisanship is low cost, high impact, rich reward that makes people feel better. The same way when you're biking to work and you stop at a stoplight and you look over at a fellow cyclist, there's no hint of road rage. People talk, they smile, they interact. We can do that with the Bike Caucus. So I would urge you to use this opportunity of your virtual visit to Capitol Hill to reach out, to be able to visit each and every congressional office, make friends of the certified smart young staff people who run Capitol Hill, be able to engage with them our bike agenda, and then go back home with your own bike summit, with your own bike caucus. Invite local Congress people and their staff to join with you for a local conversation. This is something in an era of COVID Zoom meetings. This is something that people would like to do, that they would look forward to. And again, it's positive and brings people together. This is our moment. It's right for health. It's right for justice. It's right for the climate. And it's right for the mindset to bring people together at a time when we're so divided that they want to engage. Thank you for the hard work that made this summit possible. Thanks for investing the time and energy with it. Thanks for the work that you're doing back home. Because while we may have had to mark time in Washington, D.C., more and more progress was taking place in communities across the country with new technology, with new infrastructure, with new vitality. I look forward to being your partner in this Congress and beyond to be able to realize the promise of bike partisanship. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Congressman, for your inspiring words. We had a number of questions come in, and it's almost like you've been to enough National Bike Summits and got us effectively, ready to go up on the hill that you answered, I don't know, at least 5 of them right there. So I know we're at time right now. I just want to say from all of us, thank you for your leadership. Thank you to all of you in Congress who spoke today, the inspiration and being able to ride with you and to make the most out of this moment is critical. So we all are looking forward to seeing you virtually this year and then in person next year.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, everyone. Well, we're going to send you out to the next sessions. Thanks for continuing the conversations within the app. So keep the conversations going, and we'll make sure to provide more opportunities to meet and answer these questions as we move forward. So thank you.